Welcome back to Crystal Clear. I'm Fox, and Steven Universe Future has become something that's almost frightening to theorize about. Now that the epilogue's narrative has made it abundantly clear that most of the conflicts Steven will face are actually grounded in real-world issues and situations, it's opened up a world of possibilities, but most of them are pretty heartbreaking to think about. That being said, as Steven goes farther and farther into this downward spiral, and his refusal to open up and talk about it with the gems, one unfortunate scenario that I'm starting to feel is almost an inevitability is the tension between Steven and his caretakers coming to a head, and ultimately accumulating with the gems kicking Steven out of the house. Now, I'm not going to play dumb. I'm not going to ignore your voices. I'm aware of the current Steven Universe news floating around, a certain tidbit of information you guys want covered. However, to honor the wishes of the Crewniverse, I don't want to focus on any material that was not officially released. And I'm sure there are other content creators out there who will do that for me. So nothing about this theory is pulling from that. We will only be pulling from story beats from everything up until the end of Prickly Pear. Of course, spoiler warning, if you don't even want to imagine potential scenarios for Steven Universe Future, click off now. With all that said, let's dive in. Right off the bat, I can already hear people screaming, the gems wouldn't do that. They love Steven and they wouldn't abandon him like that. Not to mention, it's his house, it exists for him, and wouldn't Greg have a say in it? And to those things, I have to say, this would be a lot more complex than the gems abandoning Steven. With Steven's current situation, he doesn't seem too keen on communicating with the gems, stating he's already said enough. Combine this with his venting to Cactus Steven about how he currently feels about the gems in relation to his problems. Steven's feelings can be viewed as relatable, but they can also be viewed as one-sided. On one hand, I can understand him not wanting to upset Pearl, not wanting her to put any blame on herself. That's Steven assuming she wouldn't have the strength to overcome it, that she wouldn't be able to handle and process that on her own. And after everything that she's been through, that they have all been through together, that lack of faith can come across as condescending. But that applies to his reasoning with all of the gems, that he doesn't want any high and mighty advice from Garnet, the person who's not only a walking fortune teller, but has let Steven repeatedly make decisions for himself, knowing the outcome multiple times, including with Cactus Steven, informing him to keep an eye on the cactus in the first place. It's not as if Garnet feels as if she's wiser than Steven, but through her experience as a crystal gem and of rose quartz, the thousands of years unseen that Ruby and Sapphire endured back on Homeworld in that society, she is on a much farther traveled road than Steven. And I already had beef with how he summed up Amethyst, saying he's sick of her acting as if she's the most mature gem when he's the one who declared her that in the first place, when she simply learned from Steven to communicate with others, when all she does is just approach things from a level-headed, chilled-out approach. After seeing everything Amethyst has been through, the way Steven talked about her absolutely was not cool. And of course he knew that, hence why he didn't want Cactus Steven to relay any of that information. But it's also not as if Steven doesn't genuinely feel this way. Just because he didn't want them to know about that doesn't mean he didn't hold those words true. So if he's in this predicament where he doesn't want to open up to the gems who are worried about him, and with good reason, and he's definitely feeling a certain type of way towards them, what's going to happen when he finally conveys those feelings to his caretakers, especially in what's sure to be a vile manner? A fit of teen rage. I'll tell you what would happen. Like any parent or guardian who's dealing with someone at that age, who's grown to a point where they can support themselves, the guardians are not going to put up with the disrespect. If Steven is going to both disrespect and refuse to communicate with the people who have been by his side since the moment he was born, there's an entire development arc with Pearl, what reason do they have to keep him in the house? The house that is the extension of their temple. The house they decided to build to take care of Steven in the first place. They have the authority to put Steven out. And if anything, Greg would certainly side with the gems. After all, he left his family at a young age. Whether if he truly ran away or was actually kicked out, we could potentially get confirmation in this moment, but I'm sure if there's anything Greg regrets in life, it's not reconnecting and staying in touch with his own family. A desire that was likely reignited after crossing paths and reestablishing a connection with Uncle Andy. This would be a great time for Steven to parallel his father for once. And again, I don't believe the gems would be doing this on malicious intent. It's not as if they're saying, you're cut off, no exceptions. It very much would be, until you're ready to speak to us, you should not be staying in this house. Steven is dealing with very real, very intense situations that teenagers and early adults may deal with. Being kicked out is a very real and common thing that happens. It's just not portrayed often on television, especially with animated series. The only example I can really think of in recent years is Gravity Falls, and the premise of Star vs. Force Evil if you want to look at it from a certain angle, but that was more magical reverse Zoe 101. And as some long-term viewers may remember, I've been kicked out before, and I've seen it happen with other relatives and friends all throughout my life. And more often than not, those situations do get resolved, and they get resolved through communication because, guess what? When you're growing up and dealing with a lot of angst and teen hormones, you are the Steven. I really feel for Steven right now. Don't get me wrong, this is not me lacking sympathy for Steven or saying he deserves to have horrible things happen to him. I know where he's coming from, but hindsight is also 2020. And as someone who's grown up a lot over the course of the last few years, especially with each passing year I've been on YouTube, seriously, I'm not even the same person I was like 6 months ago. I personally feel as if Steven is handling this all wrong, which the narrative is also trying to beat into our head. And while Steven opting to run away is always an option, let's not forget about future vision. Again, I don't believe the Gems will kick Steven out of malicious intent or just because they're angry at him, but Garnet knows that Steven can create extremely unpredictable timelines. That being said, Garnet could likely circumvent that unpredictability if the Gems are the one who makes the unpredictable action. So if she uses her future vision and tries to find a timeline where Steven opens up to the Gems, she may find, well, nothing. Because with their current approach, Steven won't open up. Things can only get worse. And for Garnet to be the one who calmly says, Steven, I think you need to leave and stay somewhere else for a little while, not only would it be heartbreaking, but at that point, Amethyst and Pearl would know it's the right thing to do because it's coming out of Garnet's mouth. Everyone in that moment, even an unaccepting Steven, would realize Garnet probably used future vision. This probably is the best course of action. And it's not as if Steven would have nowhere to go. If anything, this could likely be how the Diamonds are involved with the story of Future. The Gems kick him out and tell him, until you're ready to talk, go stay with Lars, go stay on homework with the Diamonds, do whatever you please. And I do think that would be an interesting arc. We can have an episode of Steven trying to live it up with Lars in space, endure a crazy space mission, but it doesn't exactly feel right for him. So he tries to live on homeworld with the Diamonds. It's very bougie, he's down for the lifestyle, the pink-white diamond mayhem happens, and weighing the pros and cons, Steven realizes homeworld life isn't quite for me either, or maybe things will just be too devastated, too awkward, too ruined with the Diamonds for Steven to remain there any longer, and he ends up in the same position with the Diamonds that he is with the Crystal Gems. Eventually, Steven would burn out all of his living arrangements until he hits rock bottom, and he could come knocking on a very particular door, or should I say, cave. After running out of places to stay, Steven could completely give up and try to find company, try to find a new living situation with Jasper. Steven finding himself couch surfing would also add a layer to Aquamarine's ominous foreshadowing. We already went over that she demanded for Steven to bubble his friends, destroy his home, and burn Little Homeworld to the ground. The destruction of the house and bubbling of the friends already coming to pass. Now, bubbling his friends already had an on-the-nose double meaning, with Shep pointing out that Steven is suffocating his friends, but for Steven to either run away or get kicked out, it would suddenly add a crushing double meaning to destroying his home. This sanctuary of sorts being broken figuratively and literally. Who knows? Maybe he'll attend Little Homeschool as a student, trying to rediscover what it means to be an Earthling, only to feel a little bit empty there. There are a lot of storytelling possibilities to go with this, and although Steven being kicked out would be heartbreaking, I'm sure the resolution could be heartwarming. And just through recording this episode, I'm now really excited at the prospect of for lack of a better word, homeless arc or couch surfing arc, where we do get to spend more time with other characters. But as always, these are just my thoughts, and I want to hear yours. What do you think? Will the Gems kick out Steven? And where do you think he could end up? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, or tweet your thoughts at Roundtable Vids. And for more of my own thoughts, you can find me at OpticVox. We're also on Instagram. Special thanks to JANKYBONES for creating an awesome thumbnail. For more of their amazing art, you can find them on Tumblr at JANKYBONES, Twitter and Instagram at BoneJanky, and subscribe to their YouTube channel. Link in the description. Help Roundtable grow by either becoming a member of this channel or supporting us over at Patreon. Link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please sort of like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. OpticVox, signing out.